She's back, as well as some of our most feared enemies. Let's talk about it. Yesterday, Bungie revealed what the future of Destiny 2 looks like without their partnership with Activision, and the first expansion that they will be self-publishing. While all of the big names in the Destiny community got to watch the stream live, I did not get to, as I have other responsibilities outside of YouTube. When you have a 2-acre property to help maintain, it does put a dampener on how much time you have. Also, when the matriarch of the family says she wants to binge watch Bad Blood on Netflix, you do as she says. Which, by the way, if you have not seen Bad Blood on Netflix yet, you should totally go and watch it. It is an excellent gangster show made by the same people who did Sons of Anarchy. But anyway, I managed to finally get around and watch the reveal trailer and the Vidoc for the new expansion last night. The new expansion is titled Shadowkeep and has us returning to the Ocean of Storms on the moon. The moon was my favorite patrol zone from Destiny 1, so it probably goes without saying that just this information alone got me excited. But since today's video is a thoughts video, not a reaction video, I'm gonna have to try to withhold a oh my god, we're going back to D1, and present something that's a little more thought out. So first I'm gonna go over the premise of Shadowkeep, which means I'm gonna need to unpack what was in the reveal trailer and what Bungie said in the Vidoc. Then I'm going to talk about some of the key gameplay changes that are coming to Shadowkeep. And then finally, I'm going to present a few theories as to what I believe might be going on. They could be completely wrong, or they could end up being right. So, make sure you have your spin foil hats ready. So, let's get started. So, first off, if you have not watched the reveal trailer for Shadowkeep, I strongly encourage you to go watch it now. For copyright and potential legal reasons, I cannot show it here on this video, so you can either type into YouTube Shadowkeep trailer, or I'll have a link in the description below for you. So, go watch it now if you haven't yet, and then come back here. You done watching it? You've let it all sink in? Alright, good. Let's talk about it. After 2 years of being gone, Eris Morn has finally returned. And like usual whenever she returns from somewhere, she brings bad news. While we've been protecting the Dreaming City and currying Emperor Callus's favor on the Leviathan, a new evil has emerged on the moon. This new threat has erected a citadel in the middle of the Hellmouth, and nightmares of our most feared enemies long dead are now stalking the lunar surface. Eris brings this news to Ikora Rey, who then turns to us, the most powerful guardian in the universe and the only one who can get shit done, to go to the moon and stop this. Based on what has been revealed so far, as we explore the Shadowkeep, we will be assaulted by the nightmares of Omnigul, Crota, Skolas, Gaul, and what appears to be Zydron, the Gate Lord of Venus. And much like the Taken, when these nightmares are defeated, they do not stay dead permanently. They can reappear later to harass you. So you could be just down in the Temple of Crota, minding your own business, checking out the world's grave, when all of a sudden, BAM! Crota in your face. Or BAM! Omnigul screaming in your ear. Goodbye, eardrums. While I love the idea of these iconic bosses returning, there are still yet more story details that Bungie did drop in the Vidoc. The Fallen have apparently set up a new base on the moon. As for the reason, that was not provided. Also, Bungie did state that Eris is not the only returning character from D1 to make an appearance in Shadowkeep. They say that there is yet another returning D1 character, but they will not reveal who it is, as their role is quite significant and fairly quite awesome. So far, there are only 3 D1 characters that have yet to return if you take Eris out of the mix. Varix the Loyal, Shiro 4, and Lady Aphrodite. Personally, I really want it to be Varix the Loyal. His return has been long overdue, and he actually would have motivation to come to the moon with the new Nightmare of Skolas running around. Plus, I just miss his oh so sexy voice. Yes? And besides, if we fight the Nightmare of Skolas, who does not want to hear Varix go, kill him back again? I can only dream, right? But there was one last little story bit from the Vidoc that I think was worth mentioning. and it was during the Q&A session with Dado. Dado straight up asked if Shadowkeep's story would have any connection to Forsaken and the Dreaming City, and if Queen Mara would be involved in any way. Bungie strangely dodged Dado's question, but they did not flat out deny that there could be a connection. All Bungie had to say on the matter was that Forsaken was a tale about the awokening Queen Mara, and they wanted to do the same thing for Eris here. Now, for those of you who've read the lore, I would like to remind you that Eris's loyalty is now to Queen Mara. So I believe it would be difficult to tell a story about Eris at this point that does not have some connection to the Queen. And as for the newly resurrected Uldren, well, they're keeping that under wraps for right now. As for Shadowkeep's new raid, it turns out the moon is not the only place we will be returning to in this expansion. We will be returning to Meridian Bay on Mars to raid the Black Garden. Now, as for the story reason why we're going back to the Black Garden, we don't know right now. It's very suspect. But I think there's a very specific reason why they brought back Zydron as one of the nightmares, so that could be our connection. But until we actually play Shadowkeep, we don't know for sure. So I think that's all I've got for the story premise of Shadowkeep, so let's move on and talk about the gameplay. So first, I'm going to talk about a gameplay change that I'm really excited about. Bungie has now decided that they are done wrestling with, are they an action game or are they an MMO? They have now decided that they are full-on MMORPG, and as such, when Shadowkeep comes out, we're going to get a lot more stats added to the game and a lot more numbers to look at. The most apparent of these changes comes in the form of the reintroduction of the artifact slot from Destiny 1. Now, when these artifacts got first introduced in Destiny 1, they were pretty meh. They really didn't have any effects that were that special, until Rise of Iron. The Iron Lord medallions gave some of the most substantial buffs in the game, especially the Memory of Scory, which was so powerful in fact that Bungie had to come in after Rise of Iron's launch and nerf it. Good times. However, it looks like the new artifacts in Destiny 2 are going to take this concept to the next level. Because based on the little preview screen that they showed with the Eye of the Gatelord artifact, there will be 3 columns of perks, and it looks like you can choose 1 perk from each column by the looks of it. And if that is the case, I am all for it. It will make the artifacts much more impactful. But enough about artifacts and numbers and perks. What about the actual Ocean of Storms patrol zone? Well, it is definitely not the way we remembered it. The fissures and cracks that originated at the Hellmouth have expanded all the way outward into Archer's Line and the Anchor of Light. These new cracks will make traversing these areas far more deadly, and more likely that I will ram my Sparrow right into one of them and die. Now, as for the Shadowkeep itself, the Vidoc didn't show enough detail to show the exact position of the Citadel and the surrounding fortress, but it looks like the Citadel might be foundationed into the giant pit in the Hellmouth, which coincidentally is the entrance to Crota's throne world. And if this is the case, there is potential for us to return to the Crota's End raid area. I mean, hey, I'd be up for a rematch with Crota in his own throne world. Hell, you could even have a funny little triumph. Defeat Crota by making him fall off the edge of the map. I easily amuse myself. But anyway, there is one other gameplay change that is coming with Shadowkeep, which I kinda do have a mixed opinion about, and that is the finishing blows. So each class in September is going to be getting a finishing blow, which will allow you to kill your enemies with finesse. Which, from what I saw in the Vidoc, did not look super exciting to me, and it looks like they were trying to do something like the glory kills from Doom 2016. But I don't know, maybe the final version will be a lot more appealing, but they just seemed a little plain to me. And besides, why would I risk running up to an ogre and trying to punch it in the face for a finishing blow when I can just take a rocket launcher and shoot a rocket right in its face? I mean, I'm just saying. But I believe that's all the gameplay changes I wanted to talk about, and I will say I very much look forward to patrolling the moon in September and having my weekly ritual return from Destiny 1, where I run around the moon and purge it of the alien scum. Wow, that actually sounded pretty maniacal. I guess Dorian was right. I am psychotic at times. Oh well, I'm protecting the galaxy, so what does it matter? Well, anyway, I think it's time to move on to the next part of our discussion. Did you get your spin foil hat like I told you to 10 minutes ago? I hope you did, because it's time for some theories. The darkness is a lot closer than you think. So says the preface of the story part of the Vidoc. Now, if you take the time to watch the entire Vidoc and the reveal stream, you realize that Bungie is very careful about not telling us who the main enemy of Shadowkeep is. Obviously, since we're on the moon, thar be Fallen and thar be Hive. However, I don't think the story of this is going to be so clean cut like Curse of Osiris or Warmind was, where one race is the bad guy. I expect this to be a little more in tune with Forsaken, where there are multiple races that are causing problems. But for the purposes of this expansion, we need to ask ourselves two very important questions. What is creating these nightmares, and who or what built the Shadowkeep? I spent a bit of time on the Ishtar Collective running some searches on some key terms. The first one I started with is nightmares. Unfortunately, nothing came up that was significant with regards to this expansion. The word nightmare appears all over Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 over various races, so that was no help. I then searched Luna and Hellmouth and reread some of the Grimoire cards to see if they mentioned possibly anything that was remaining dormant beneath the lunar surface. That did not yield anything. I then tried to cross-reference the remaining Hive Worm gods, Ire, and Yule, to see if the ability to create nightmares was ever mentioned in the Book of Sorrows. Nothing. I then looked up Savathun and Shivu Arath to see if there was any mention in the lore of their abilities. Nothing. My thoughts then drifted back to the Broodholt strike from Forsaken. I recalled that the ghost mentioned that we never found the Brood Queen in the Hellmouth. Also, during Inanon's boss fight, she reaches out to the Everhunger and uses his powers to create a shade. So, I type in Brood Queen and Inanon, I get nothing. So, this theory train's going nowhere fast. So I get to thinking to myself, maybe I'm thinking either in too much of general terms, or I'm trying to stick with the Hive too specifically. And then I recalled that in Season of the Drifter, in the Stolen Intelligence lore book, there were 2 pages that specifically mentioned the Hellmouth, Cocytus and Fragment. Let's start with Fragment. Fragment is an after-action report from a Guardian that is patrolling the Hellmouth and comes across a thrall's corpse with a mysterious fragment sticking out of it. As the Guardian approaches the fragment, he begins to have hallucinations about Eris. The Guardian then tries to have his ghost run a material scan on the fragment. The materials of construction do not match anything in the city's databases. The ghost then makes an attempt to transmat the fragment to their ship, but is unsuccessful, claiming it is unable to establish a connection from the light to the fragment. Out of curiosity, and also out of options, the Guardian breaks quarantine protocol and touches the fragment. He has a vivid 7-second hallucination of Eris Morn, a person known as VIP-0704, and a ship in the background that is of unknown origin from which the fragment splintered from. When the hallucination ends, the Guardian places himself in quarantine and returns to the city with the fragment. So what this lore page shows us is that there is something definitely at work in the Hellmouth at the time of Season of the Drifter, but we're not 100% certain on what it is just yet. But now let's turn our attention to the lore page Cocytus. For those of you who don't know what Cocytus is, it's a series of stargates that were once under Awoken control. But when Crota, the son of Oryx, arrived in our system, he took control of the Cocytus gates and tethered them straight to the Hive Ascendant realm in their throne worlds. Or as the Awoken put it, they became conduits to hell. When we killed Crota in the Dark Below, the Hive lost control of the Cocytus gates, and the Awoken regained control of them. However, the gates remained inactive until Season of the Drifter. One of the Cocytus gates went active and started emitting particles: hydrogen, helium, carbon, hydrocarbons, and the other foundational building blocks of life. After many hours of activity, the gate finally spewed forth something new, something alive. However, without any respiratory, circulatory, or metabolic systems, the organism's lifespan only lasted milliseconds. However, this would not be the only organism that would be sent through the gate. Over many days, the gate would spew forth more organisms, each becoming increasingly more complex, their lifespan lasting longer and longer. However, even the most complex of these organisms still could not survive more than just seconds. At the 30-day mark, the gate suddenly shuts down. Whatever was sending the organisms through has given up. All that remains now are very faint particle emissions coming from the gate, whose molecular signatures match the Hellmouth on Luna. It would later be revealed in Season of the Drifter that it was the Nine controlling the Cocytus Gate and using raw materials from the Hellmouth in an attempt to create artificial life. Ultimately, this attempt at alchemy was a failure, and the Nine gave up on their effort. However, this did not stop the Awoken from trying to investigate what was really going on the other side of the gate. So, the Awoken reactivate the gate and send a reconnaissance drone through to see what's on the other side. The results of this expedition are extremely foreboding. The moment that the drone passes through the gate, it suffers a catastrophic failure. The cause of the failure was not mechanical or electrical, or even a programming error. It was simply a failure to exist. The Awoken then shut down the gate and fear what may come out of it the next time it activates on its own. Now, the detail that the drone simply failed to exist on the other side of the gate is a very interesting one. As to my recollection, there have only ever been 2 instances in the lore where it says that objects can simply fail to exist. The first of these being the oracles from the Vault of Glass. The oracles have the ability to take objects and people that are in their localized space and rewrite the timeline so that they no longer exist. However, the oracles cannot perform this action instantaneously, so this cannot be what happened to the Awoken's drone. So now we move on to the second instance of non-existence happening in the lore, that being Calus's encounter with the darkness. The lore card on the sword It Stared Back from the Leviathan raid recalls Calus's encounter where he stared into the void from outside the Leviathan, and he saw nothing. No light, no shadow, no darkness, just nothing. But yet, something in that nothingness stared back at him, and declared Calus the herald of its arrival across the universe. And now, in Season 7, during the Menagerie, Calus informs us that when the end does come, and the nothingness arrives in our system, everything will die. So what does this all mean? Well, this means now that one of the Awoken Cocytus gates is now linked to darkness space, which is also now, coincidentally, linked to the Hellmouth on the moon. So, if the darkness gains control of this Stargate, they could begin sending scouts through, or perhaps heralds of their arrival. So then, they arrive on the moon, and they build the Shadowkeep, and then create the nightmares as not only a defense mechanism, but as a way to torment us. And so, much like the Cabal scouts on Mars from Destiny 1, this would be the opening shot from the darkness. But there's still one last piece of this puzzle, and that's the new raid in the Black Garden. Well, think back to Destiny 1 Vanilla. Does everybody remember the heart of the Black Garden? I'm sure you do, despite the fact it was a very underwhelming boss fight. But I don't want to draw your attention to the heart itself. I want to draw your attention to what was surrounding the heart. The structure surrounding the heart of the Black Garden looks very much like a half-finished Vex transfer gate, not unlike the one we used to gain access to the Black Garden in the first place. We already know that the Vex can use these transfer gates to warp anywhere within the collective. So planet to planet, galaxy to galaxy. So, in short, they're stargates. And if the structure that was behind the heart of the Black Garden is in fact a stargate, it's a really big one. Big enough to say, fit a starship through. And here's the thing, the Black Garden is completely empty right now. The Vex have abandoned it. So it would be nothing for the new enemy in Shadowkeep to come to the Black Garden and try to take control of this Stargate. And if it is indeed the darkness at work in Shadowkeep, the last thing we need is for them to take that Stargate and bring their entire fleet of pyramid ships to our system now. So we'll just have to shut them down. But anyway, that's what I believe might be going on in the story of Shadowkeep. I know I've made quite a stretch there, but quite frankly, in the universe of Destiny, nothing is impossible. So it could be very correct, or it could be so wrong it's laughable. But we'll find out on September 17th, and then we can look back and everyone can either say that I was so smart or I was a fool. But anyway, take your spin foil hats off now. We're done here today. So, I hope you all enjoyed listening to me today rant on about my early thoughts and impressions of Shadowkeep, as well as taking some time to sit down and speculate a little bit. For me, honestly, September cannot come soon enough. This is the most excited I think I've ever been for a Destiny content release ever. And I'm not normally one to jump on the hype train, but I'm on it, and I'm about to ride it either to satisfaction or disappointment. But that's just me. Where do you all stand? Are you all on the hype train with me, or are you reserving judgment until Shadowkeep comes out? Do you think my story theory holds weight, or am I a complete buffoon? Let me know down below. And finally, if you liked today's video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you disliked it, show it to the dredgens. I mean your enemies. And now if you'll excuse me, I have to head back to the Leviathan for some more menage a trois. I've got an emperor to please after all, and some loot to earn. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all next time.